Welcome to Radio Literature, Madison's weekly look at poetry, fiction, memoir, and experimental writing for readers of all ages. Settle in for a conversation on radio literature.
Hello, friends. This is your host for Radio Literature, Melvin Hinton, because it's Thursday, 7:30 p.m., right here in Madison, Wisconsin, Central Time. Okay. Tonight we have some very special guests. We've had, actually not these. Have you been here before?
I have.
I thought I recognized you. Yes. I was going to say we're completely different people, but it's still the Madison Shakespeare Company, and we have Sarah Johnson. We have Issaka Brellenthin. Thank you. And we have Carl Cawthorne.
Yes.
Okay. And so I'm very glad to have you here. When the Madison Shakespeare Company is here, we always enjoy ourselves. And your upcoming production is The Taming of the Shrew, which opens on June 22nd.
Yeah.
June 22nd. Okay. And that's a Friday, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Let's start with Sarah, since she's been here before. Is this is at least your second production with the Madison Shakespeare Company? Because I have a note here saying that you've played Lady Macbeth.
Yes.
Which I hate to say that I missed.
I hate to say that too.
Yeah.
You missed it. It was fantastic.
I'm sure it was. And I could just looking at you, I could see you in the role of Lady Macbeth. I could see you in many different roles.
There you go.
And Issaka Brellenthin, you play Bianca in The Taming of the Shrew.
Yes.
Now, it's been so long since I've seen a number of productions of The Taming of the Shrew, and I've read The Taming of the Shrew a number of times because I did study some Shakespeare in college. But I can't remember Bianca. Who was Bianca?
So Bianca is the sister of the Shrew in the title, which is Catherine.
Okay.
And she's the younger sister and the younger daughter of Baptista. She kind of is like the secondary female character, and she's the love interest of, half the characters in the play, but primarily Lucentio in the play.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Now, thinking back, I can't run. I've seen a number of productions of The Taming of the Shrew, but unfortunately, the only one that comes to my mind right now, for obvious reasons, is Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton.
Absolutely.
Yeah, of course.
Have you seen that movie?
Yes.
Most definitely.
And have you by any chance seen them in Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? The two of them.
I think a while ago.
Yeah.
A few years back.
Yeah. So why Shakespeare? I mean, why a company in Madison devoted to Shakespeare? Of course, it's not the only one. And why Shakespeare for you, each of you individually? Who'd like to start? Carl?
Yeah, I've sort of grown up with Shakespeare. This is my third time out with The Taming of the Shrew.
Really? I didn't know that.
way back in the early 70s when I started college, I actually was cast as Petruchio in my freshman year, and it's been all downhill since. But no, it was Petruchio, and then several other Shakespeare plays. I played Vincentio and other roles in Shrew later on. And so this is my first time with Baptista, the father of the Shrew, and he's desperately hoping that someone will come along to marry his older sister, his older daughter, so that the other suitors can go on to Bianca.
Yeah. And Sarah, who plays Catherine. Why Shakespeare for you? I'm sorry.
Sure, right. Well, I teach English actually at Madison College, and I teach early British lit.
Oh,
and I have not taught Taming of the Shrew, but I do teach Shakespeare, and so for me, it's always been fun to study.
Yes,
I hadn't started acting in Shakespeare productions until the Tragedy of Macbeth a couple years ago, and I had mostly done musicals and opera and things like that before, but this for me was a very exciting and fun way to sort of meld two loves, to think about it in terms of the language and the literature, but then also to be on stage.
And Sarah also had something to do with our adaptation.
That's true.
Why don't we leave that for a moment later? Because I wanted to bring that in. So that was Sarah Johnson, who plays Catherine in The Taming of the Shrew, the Madison Shakespeare Company production, which opens on the 22nd of June, Friday the 22nd of June, and Carl Cawthorne, who plays Baptista, and Bianca is played by Issaka Brellenthin. So why Shakespeare for you?
Well, I did my first Shakespeare production. I was just thinking, I think I was 7 at the time. I did it with young Shakespeare players, so it's been a passion for a long time. I actually was involved in the second production that Madison Shakespeare did, and I just know at that time, kind of a group of people had been saying, like, why isn't there outdoor theater in Madison? We have it in Spring Green, we have it a lot of places across the country, but we don't really have a dedicated company in Madison. So at that time we were performing at Breeze Stevens Field, and it was just a lot of people had seen the need and were really excited to be doing that and to have a summer show for that. So I think Taming of the Shrew is a really interesting choice because we've actually always set our pieces like in the appropriate period that they were written for. And this one we're actually setting in a modern setting.
And
I think
didn't know that.
So it's a really different direction, but I think it's just very timely to take a show like Taming of the Shrew that has kind of a lot of themes of like just gender roles and stuff, and kind of updating it for 2018 and kind of telling it our own way versus some of the conventional ways it's been told.
Oh, yes. Do you have a scene for us to present to our listeners?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
We'll start with the first scene in the play.
Okay.
Where Baptista is being pursued by several suitors to Bianca, and he has to tell them, wait. Catherine comes first.
Okay.
So it begins with Baptista. Gentlemen, importune me no farther, for how I firmly am resolved, you know, that is not to bestow my youngest daughter before I have a husband for the elder. If either of you both love Katharina, because I know you well and love you well, leave shall you have to court her at your pleasure.
I pray you, sir, is it your will to make a stale of me amongst these mates?
Gentlemen, that I may soon make good what I have said, Bianca, get you in. And let it not displease thee, good Bianca, for I will love thee ne'er the less, my girl.
Pretty Pete. It is best put finger in the eye, and she know why.
Sister, content you in my discontent. Sir, to your pleasure humbly I subscribe. My books and instruments shall be my company, on them to look and practice by myself.
Go in, Bianca. And for I know she taketh most delight in music, instruments, and poetry, schoolmasters will I keep within my house, fit to instruct her youth. If you, Hortensio, or Signor Gremio, you know any such, prefer them hither. For to cunning men I will be very kind and liberal to mine own children in good bringing up. And so farewell. Katharina, you may stay, for I have more to commune with Bianca.
Why? And I trust I may go too, may I not? What? Shall I be appointed hours as though belike I knew not what to take and what to leave? Ha!
Oh, me. I hate for that to end. So again, our guests are Madison Shakespeare Company actors, Sarah Johnson, Issaka Brellenthin, and Carl Cawthorne. They are preparing for the June 22nd opening of Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew. And Issaka, you mentioned the Young Shakespeare Players, one of our favorite guests here on this program, Radio Literature. So how long were you in the Young Shakespeare Players?
Oh, let's see. I did shows on and off from, what would that be, 2001 to 2005 or so. So I did Macbeth actually a couple of times.
Okay.
And King Henry IV Part 1 was my first show. So yeah, I was involved for several years there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And were you the only one from your family, or do you have any sisters or brothers who were also?
I think I was the only one who did YSP specifically. Yeah, my
Okay.
youngest brother did theater too, but more musical theater.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Young Shakespeare Players. There should be articles about the Young Shakespeare Players in the New York Times and Washington Post. And
very
just,
unique company, yeah. Very
yeah. And it's now I've gotten used to the idea. Whenever I have people here to talk about Shakespeare or to perform Shakespeare, something about the Young Shakespeare Players always comes in. There's somebody who is an alumnus or alumna of that group.
Yeah,
or
we have
a few.
We have
in the
two
show.
other cast members, I think, at least, playing Hortensio and Grumio. Yeah, both of them
great
did
feeder.
YSP as well. Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Yes.
Lots of alum.
And Sarah, Carl mentioned that you did you adapted the play for this particular production.
Yes.
What does that mean? What did you have to do to it?
Sure. I had actually done some work last summer for the company for a super obscure Jacobean drama by Thomas Heywood, and I had never done it before, and I enjoyed it. Had a really good time doing it, and realized that even though I'm no Shakespeare scholar, I approached it. I think like an actor, and really thought about what would play, along with thinking about it in terms of all the times I've taught Elizabethan and Jacobean drama, and so when Francisco Torres, the director, asked me to take a look at the script, I was really excited to do it, and so. When it comes to adapting a play like this one, which Issaka is absolutely right. It is chock full of extremely relevant themes, but it's also a difficult show in that there's a heck of a lot of misogyny in here, and what do we do with that in 2018? How can we make this show very clearly about sharing power and about how the world doesn't always recognize or appreciate when a woman speaks her mind, and how do we make it clear that in fact Petruchio enjoys that and wants her to speak her mind instead of wanting her to shut up, which is what everybody else kind of does. So when I went to adapt it, and of course the script itself is hilarious. There's so much of it. I don't want Taming of the Shrew to ever just be taken off the repertoire because it's difficult. It's a funny show. But I was amazed as I went through and was looking at the words, how much of it could be tweaked with just one or two words here and there in this speech or that speech, that makes it very clear this isn't about subjugating women. It's about how do people get along in relationship, in romantic relationships, but also in other kinds of relationships as well. How do they share power? And so, in terms of adaptation, a lot of it was just cutting. I cut out whole characters and gave away their lines to other lucky people. But a lot of it just had to do with taking out some stuff and then tweaking some words here and there.
One thing that I'm always interested in when I talk to actors is how you go about learning your parts, learning your lines. Do you have any secrets I know some people find it easy to just learn lines just like that, but a lot of people have a lot of trouble learning their lines. And I've seen productions where you think, well, that actor, maybe he or she didn't have much time, maybe came to the production late and never learned, but actually you can tell didn't learn his or her lines.
Right.
And it can be disconcerting. But what do you have a secret, or do you just find it easy to do? Or?
I think sometimes with Shakespeare, people always tell me, I don't understand how you memorize all that Shakespeare. It's so hard. Shakespeare's the easiest to memorize. It's in iambic pentameter. It rhymes a lot of the time. Like, it's very rhythmic. So I just find it really easy. You know what your next line has to be because it has to fit this many syllables, versus a lot of other more like prosaic writers, I guess, are harder to memorize because you have to actually remember what comes next.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
true.
poetry, and poetry is, lyrics to a song or words to a poem are. I think you're absolutely right. They are easier to come by, easier to retain.
Mm-hmm.
But memorizing always does take time.
Yeah.
A good deal of time, and I would agree with you that Shakespeare may be a little bit easier to learn than some of the more flat prosaic prose type stuff.
Yeah. And what about you, Sarah?
I don't know about you guys, but I'm a runner, and my runs are completely devoted to running lines as in my head. I record them and I listen to them, and then I just that's what I do. That's what I do during my shows.
That's interesting.
When I'm running.
Oh yeah. Oh well. Is there as far as I know, there's no stable company devoted to Shakespeare in Madison? I guess there wouldn't be enough of an audience for that. They're just a company that's a real company that's together as one group mostly, and they just do Shakespeare.
Well, I would say we're probably that company, if there is one. And in the sense that, are we the same company in every show? No, absolutely not. We do, and I think that's pretty exciting, actually. We have a number of new cast members in this show, but we have some returning as well. Issaka is back after a hiatus, which is kind of exciting. And so, I would say that we are that company for Madison. And Issaka also mentioned the idea of Shakespeare outdoors, which I think is so wonderful and exciting. Yes. Madison Shakespeare does do pop-up, scene shows and that kind of thing. They do their winter production as well, which is obviously indoors. But the Edgewood amphitheater space is just beautiful. If your listeners have never been there,
I haven't been there. So.
I encourage. I definitely encourage you to come. It's the perfect space. To put on outdoor theater. The acoustics are wonderful.
It's right by the lake. You get a breeze.
It's very lovely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So do you have another scene for us?
We do.
Yeah.
Okay.
In this scene, Kate and Bianca, you get an inside window.
Yeah, a little look at their sisterly relationship.
Sibling rivalry.
Yeah. All right. Good sister, wrong me not, nor wrong yourself to make a bondmaid and a slave of me. Or what you will command me will I do, so well I know my duty to my elders.
Of all thy suitors here I charge thee tell, whom thou lovest best, see thou dissemble not.
Believe me, sister, of all the men alive, I never yet beheld that special face which I could fancy more than any other.
Minion, thou liest. Is it not Hortensio?
If you affect him, sister, here I swear I'll plead for you myself, but you shall have him.
Oh, then belike you fancy riches more. You will have Gremio to keep you fair.
Is it for him you do envy me so? Nay, then, you jest. And now I will perceive you have been jested with me all this while.
If that be jest, then all the rest was so.
Why, how now, dame? Whence grows this insolence? Bianca, stand aside. Poor girl, she weeps. Go ply thy needle, meddle not with her. For shame, thou hilding of a devilish spirit! Why dost thou wrong her that did ne'er wrong thee? When did she cross thee with a bitter word?
Her silence flouts me, and I'll be revenged.
What, in my sight? Bianca, get thee in.
What? Will you not suffer me? Nay, now I see. She is your treasure. She must have a husband, and I must dance barefoot on her wedding day. And for your love to her, stay here in hell. Talk not to me. I will go sit and weep till I can find occasion of revenge.
Was ever gentleman thus grieved as I?
Poor Baptista.
Oh, thank you so much for that. Let's see. For anybody who may have just joined us, you're listening to Radio Literature on WORT, and our guests are Madison Shakespeare Company. We're here with the three actors, Sarah Johnson, Issaka Brellenthin, and Carl Cawthorne. They're reading from The Taming of the Shrew, Shakespeare's The Taming of the Shrew, which will premiere on the 22nd of June. That's Friday, 22nd of June. And that will be at the Edgewood Amphitheater.
Yep.
Okay. And is that right next to Edgewood College, or?
It's on the
right there
campus.
On the campus.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right behind the theater arts building right by the lake.
Okay. Good. Do you have did you major in theater in college, or have you had any special theater training, or did you just pick it up as a hobby? And
I began as a theater major in a small liberal arts college in Indiana, Earlham College, and then I transferred up to the University of Wisconsin, Madison, and I decided to expand my training. So I still did a lot of theater, but I ended up with a degree in comm arts. But after college, I drifted back into theater, and I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, I still remember Earlham from the College Bowl from the 60s, I guess.
Oh, it's a small school. I didn't know they were in that.
Oh, but it's I'm from the time when Americans knew the names of the most prestigious colleges. Now they're all the same. One college is good. If it's not Harvard or Princeton or Stanford,
Right.
people think, oh, well, it's just one of those others. You know? They don't know the difference, unfortunately. But I remember Earlham. Issaka.
So I was a theater major for a year in college, but I've primarily just done community shows. Like I said, I had young Shakespeare players growing up, and then continued to do theater throughout high school and then into the community.
Now, the young Shakespeare players, do they do a lot of voice work?
Oh, they do a little bit of everything. Yeah, you get quite a bit of training doing YSP.
Yeah, because when the young, even the small ones, I've had some as young as 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And they just don't communicate. I mean, they communicate so well, not like the average 7 or 8 or 9 or 10-year-old. You know, you can tell the difference.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And Sarah, what about you? What about your background in theater?
I was an English major in college. I did minor in music, but then did some theater in college as well. And actually, I'm excited because, like you, Carl, I did not a full production of Taming of the Shrew, but I did that when I was in college, and so I'm very excited to come back to it.
Oh yes, an interesting thing since when you said you majored in music. Yeah, I lived in Spain for many years, and at the conservatory in Madrid, much of the voice work for actors is actually done by voice singing teachers.
Sure.
And it's done, and it's they teach them to sing, and they use that as the basis for most of the vocalizations and voice production.
Absolutely.
For acting.
Keeps your voice healthy.
Yeah, yeah. So we might have, if you had another short scene, we have about 3.5 minutes. Do you think something that might fit into that?
Well, unfortunately, there's not anything else that the three of us can do.
Okay.
I can do a little bit of my final speech, maybe.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And this is an interesting one, of course, because, and I won't do the whole thing.
Okay.
But this is where I ended up having to tweak a little bit because, of course, this is the speech where supposedly Kate has completely succumbed and is telling women how to behave to their husbands.
Yeah, I remember this.
Mm-hmm. I am ashamed that we all are so simple. To offer war when we should kneel for peace, or seek for rule, supremacy, and sway, when we are bound to serve, love, and obey. Come, you froward and unable worms. My mind hath been as big as one of yours. My heart is great, my reason haply more. To bandy word for word and frown for frown. But now I see our lances are but straws, our strength as weak, our weakness past compare, that seeming to be most which we indeed least are. So veil your stomachs, for it is no boot, and place your hands below your husband's foot, in token of which duty, if he please, my hand is ready. May it do him ease.
That was Sarah Johnson, who plays Catherine in the upcoming production of The Taming of the Shrew, which is in rehearsals. I assume you've started or about to start rehearsals.
We're heading over there after we're done here.
For The Taming of the Shrew, the Madison Shakespeare Company, which will premiere on June 22nd, Friday, June 22nd, at the Edgewood Amphitheater. That's right there on the campus of the Edgewood Theater. Yep. And let's see, one more question. How long is your rehearsal period?
Generally 6 weeks.
About 6 weeks.
6 weeks. Oh,
Yeah.
good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Yeah. Okay. I was afraid you were going to say, 4 weeks. Oh, no.
No,
we're pretty good
Yeah.
professional group though. We're memorized pretty quickly and working the. We're going to start full runs here this weekend.
Very soon.
Yeah.
We'll move into the space.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to this production of The Taming of the Shrew by the Madison Shakespeare Company. Opens on Friday, June 22nd at the Edgewood Amphitheater on the campus of Edgewood College. Mm-hmm. And I hope you'll come back soon.
It will run for seven performances, I believe.
Yep,
So
that
2 weekends.
weekend and then the next weekend.
And we have matinees on
the 24th
both.
and 1st at 4 p.m. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So folks can go to the website Madison Shakespeare Company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And please join us next week for another edition of Radio Literature. We'll be in our first pledge program of the summer. So please join us next week. Good night.
You've been listening to Radio Literature, a collectively produced weekly program on WORT 89.9 FM Madison and WORT HD. We are listener-sponsored community radio. Join us again next Thursday at 7:30 for more features of local writers and writers of local interest.